Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to give people just a few minutes to trickle in, and then we're going to kick things off. Hi, everyone. If you're just joining, we will kick things off in just a moment. We're just letting a few more folks trickle in. All right. I think we have critical mass, so let's get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining our Retool Tech Talk this morning. For those of you who are new to Retool Tech Talks, we host these regularly just to give some of our best customers the chance to deep dive on how their organizations use Retool. It's a really great place to learn about best practices or use cases or just ask questions. Today, I will run through quick introductions and just a couple of housekeeping items, and then hand things over to our wonderful friends at Snowflake to demo a really impressive initiative that they have been focused on. But first, intros and a couple quick items. If we haven't met, my name's Megan Kier. I lead the customer success management team at Retool. And I am joined by the lovely Falguni Sonawala, Snowflake's Manager of Security, Risk, and Compliance, and Cameron Tekiyeh, Snowflake's Manager of Security Analytics. Falguni and Cameron's team have been working on a major initiative to help turn manual user access review processes into a suite of Retool apps that automate away hundreds of hours of work, and I am so excited for them to share it with you all today. Before we dive in, I have just a couple quick notes for you all to keep in mind. First, this session is being recorded. We'll be sharing it out afterwards, so please do keep an eye on your inbox after we wrap. And of course, feel free to pass this along to your network. Second, if you are on the live session, we want to hear from you. So please post questions in the question console, which you should see on the bottom menu bar. I have a couple of our expert Retool engineers, Victoria and Ben, on the line, who will answer questions throughout, and then we'll also save plenty of time at the end for questions for Falguni and Cameron. Last but not least, please feel free to introduce yourselves and comment in the chat. You should also see that on the bottom menu bar. We would love to learn a little bit more about you. All right, and with that, I will hand things over to Falguni and Cameron to talk about user access review.
Awesome. Excited to be here with you all. We're going to do some short intros about ourselves in a minute, but first we're going to walk through the agenda slide here. So in today's webinar presentation here, we're going to kind of review with you all what are user access reviews, how are these UARs typically performed in an organization, organizations from small, medium to big, how they're typically done. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges and impact with doing those traditionally. These are, real challenges that Falguni and I had to face at Snowflake I think many customers face, and they have a pretty large impact. So we're going to discuss those. Then we're kind of dive into why we believe using Snowflake as your security data lake will actually position you really well for automating UARs and building them on top of Snowflake with Retool. And then we're going to actually go into that entire data flow of how we've done this using Snowflake and Retool, and give you more of a data flow diagram flow of that all. Once we've covered those details and you guys are experts on this, we will do a demo of the actual app that we've built, talk about the benefits that we've observed, and then we'll talk about some next steps after that. So with that, let's go to the next slide here. We also want you to know who we are and where we come from, so you know who's talking to you here. So I'll start off by doing a short introduction, and I hand it over to you, Falguni. But as Megan mentioned, my name is Cameron. I'm currently leading the security analytics team here at Snowflake. I've been with Snowflake for around 4 years, almost 4 years. And when I joined the company, it was very different than what it is today. When I joined, it was like 400 people, very small, scrappy startup. And now we're at 5,000 people, and we scaled to that like within a very short time period. So when I joined the team, primarily I was responsible for getting our product certified with various audit frameworks. And I had to gather that evidence manually to do so. And I was always looking for how I could use Snowflake to automate those activities and help us scale. And so I started doing that as a side gig, and that kind of turned into a full-time gig for me as well now. And now that's one of my roles is automating, automating evidence collection for audits, but also monitoring controls using Snowflake. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and I'm super grateful to be working here with someone like Falguni on the business side and compliance. So Falguni, I'll send it over to you, and you can do a short intro as well.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Megan. Hello, everyone. My name is Falguni Sonawala. I've been with Snowflake for about 5 years now. And very similar to what Cameron said, our journey started in a very small startup, and now we're really big. And I would say we've been able to scale with the help of using Snowflake, but at the same time, also partnering with great partners like Retool. So again, as a compliance person, you deal with a lot of assessments, a lot of audit work. You can keep doing that all day, all night. But if you are thinking about automation alongside all of the stuff you are doing, that can really help you scale as the organization grows, as the number of users grow, as the number of systems grow. So overall, this is sort of a look at how our journey has been, where we decided that, hey, we don't want to stick to the norm and just be going through manual audit work or manual control monitoring work. We want to figure out a way to scale and automate. So that's pretty much about us. We can go to the next slide. All right. So I'm not sure how many compliance people we have here, or system owners, but user access reviews, I feel like everyone in an organization has heard about them. You may like them, you may not like them, but this is a very, very important control. So for most organizations, the review of access to systems of their employees and their access privileges and their credentials, that's a very standard control that is implemented. And it gives assurance not just to auditors, but also to the customers of the service or the product that the company is doing their due diligence. So that's what user access reviews are. It's just a periodic review of employee access rights within the company. many organizations, it is done quarterly. It's the same at Snowflake. We do this on a quarterly basis. Uh, we are also a new public company, so our processes are definitely have to be on the top, and rigorous. So it's a continuous process on our end. Every quarter, just before the quarter is about to end, we'll kick off this process, and you never even realize when you have to do it again. And one of the things I have noticed, while supporting these processes, is that it's not a check the box. For many organizations that are growing fast, or that are adding a lot of systems, this sort of control becomes a way to ensure that we are reducing excessive access. We are preventing any mistakes, any insider mistakes, whether uh, any inadvertent mistakes for the most part. Um, and then also mitigating any insider threats, right? You always want to ensure that people only have the access that they need, that is required for their job duties, and make sure that you're meeting all of your regulatory requirements at the same time. So whether it's NIST, HIPAA, high trust, SOX, SOC, if you guys have heard of any of these frameworks in your lifetime, then these frameworks are looking for user access reviews to be done in your organization. So again, I can keep talking about this all day. It's a very, very important control. Um, but if we go on to the next slide, I can talk about some of the pain points that we have around user access reviews today at Snowflake, and many other organizations that I've also spoken to. So this is a typical workflow of how user access reviews are done. We have someone, whether it's a system owner, or whether it's a system administrator, or someone in compliance. They'll, every quarter, or whatever the cadence is for your organization, you'll see that they have to start going to the different systems and start generating lists of users and their credentials and their roles, and then they have to start taking a bunch of screenshots. And this is a lot of work, and it upsets a lot of people when you go requesting screenshots from them. So that's what we call the preparation phase of a user access review. Next comes the review performance. That this is again typically done by someone who owns the system owner, or it could be management. The direct manager of the employees, or it could be team leads. So these guys, they get a long list of individuals that they have to review, and they're trying to make sense of, well, why does this person need access? Did this person leave my team? Does this person need access to the system? So that's the typical reaction, or the typical work that falls on a review performer. And then finally, when all of this is done, you have to make sure that the access changes are done in a timely manner as well. So if someone says, hey, these 5 people don't work for me anymore, please remove their access. So that's when the remediation kicks in, and then you have to coordinate with your IT team or the system administrators to make sure that they are adjusting the access of the individuals. So as you can see, it's a multi-step process. It can be very time consuming. It can have a lot of faults or missteps along the way. And overall, it's just a lot of work for organizations to do this. From my experience, or from whom, by speaking to certain individuals, I've come to know that organizations typically spend several weeks every quarter getting this done, right? And it is the same, or it was the same at Snowflake for us for the longest time. uh, even before we were public, we were doing these reviews for our audits. And when we were small, it was okay. Um, we could get through it in a couple of weeks. But as we started growing, we realized how time consuming um, and uh, and painful this can be. So going on to the next slide. Sorry. No worries. So this is how these are traditionally performed, and this is an example uh, from Snowflake. As you can see, there are a lot of interesting people who work at Snowflake. All of the Avengers. Um, but every quarter, my team, we work with a bunch of individuals across various systems, and we used to prepare these spreadsheets, right? And get these shipped over to managers, to system owners, and tell them to, like, hey, look through this, please enter certain values, um, and give us some information so that we can take that and complete and get over with this activity. So as you can see, if you are receiving 10 of these spreadsheets, it can be a very taxing process for an end user. And at the same time, it can be a challenge for a team like compliance to prepare these um, every quarter, right? So we were dealing with a bunch of these spreadsheets. We were creating a bunch of Jira tickets to go on with them, go along with them, and we were doing all of that jazz. And
If I can add,
Go ahead.
something, Falguni, I was just going to say, creating spreadsheets in Google Sheets when we're dealing with a audit life cycle is very challenging, right? Because like we care a lot about like change management and also like knowing what changes are made to the spreadsheet and actually being able to like hang your hat on the contents in here. So just by using this as a tool, yes, it's a tool that was at our disposal to use at the time, but it can cause a lot of challenges and be hard to get the trust of our auditors when we're using this. So at a foundational level, we can't really capture changes that are made in spreadsheets, and when people come in and put one value here, one value there, there's no like data flow that we can generate from that in that sense. So we'll talk about how Retool solves that for us, which we love, but just another pain point that we felt during that process. I just had to mention that. But back to you, Falguni.
No, thank you. Very, very true. I've spoken to Cameron a lot about this. So I'm sure, he can remember from our journey back then how we were doing things. So, I know I've talked a lot about the problems and the current state, or the state that was there a few months back. And if you go to the next slide, I think overall we started seeing a lot of impact. So towards the end of last year, we just noticed a lot of pushback from the business, from the managers who were doing these reviews, plus overall the amount of time we were spending behind these, right? So we have a suite of 30 systems that we are looking at, and there are siloed, disintegrated processes across these systems. We are doing a different process for different systems, right? It's again, not to keep harping on it, but very manual, very time consuming, and highly error prone. Like, we would do all of this work, we would review all of these 100 users, and then we would realize when the testing would happen from the audit side, we would realize that, hey, this one user was missed, or this one review was done late. and that created like that sometimes creates a lot of frustration. Plus, all of our managers, at Snowflake, we have this. Everyone wants to be innovative. Everyone wants to think how you can improve a process. So they were very vocal about it, and they shared a lot of feedback with us on how these reviews are in a way ineffective sometimes, because they're just going through a long list of individuals without really getting the context or really understanding um, what access they're being provisioned. So, while we were dealing with all of these things on our end, it also has some business impact. I think the biggest business impact that we see is, excessive access, uh, uh, insider risk, that can continue to be retained. And then most importantly, ultimately it creates sales friction and audit mistrust or customer mistrust, because when you have these small issues crop up on your audit reports, it just shows that, as a company, hey, you're not being diligent enough. um, and you're not looking at your processes, or you're not making an effort to improve your processes. So with all of that happening, a few months back, Cameron and I, we got together and we were like, hey, let's figure out a way to solve this process. Um, the fundamentals were having the data in Snowflake for us, but we were really looking for a flexible and easy to use or easy to build user interface that we could just quickly put together. um, and um, and we found Retool in that place. It was a great platform to get started with. And in the next few slides, we'll talk about the architecture that we have in place. So, since I've done a lot of the talking, I'm going to hand it over to Cameron now, and have him present the overall architecture.
Yeah. No, it's good. I think setting up the business context is super important. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the architecture and the data flow with Snowflake. So this is a little bit about our journey as well. And when we started this entire program and this entire process, the reason why we believe it was successful is because we did leverage Snowflake as our security data lake. And by doing so, we noticed it had a lot of benefits and a lot of use cases for that. So for example, within Snowflake, we have various organizations like threat detection, incident response, data science, IT, and then security compliance, right? These are all different organizations that will have a use case to use the same data that we're ingesting into Snowflake for our UAR automation process. So putting that data all into Snowflake really enables all of these teams to do various other security projects, and ultimately enrich the security capabilities of our organization. And so we found it super successful to partner with them and say, threat detection, you want to write custom, detections using entitlement data that we might be ingesting, right? Data science and IT might want to analyze the onboarding experience of various users, what access they get on day 1 versus what access they're requesting on day 10 of joining a company, right? Security compliance wants to automate user access review, what we're talking about here today. But having data all in Snowflake as one platform to be able to build these various use cases on top of was extremely successful for us in a way to begin. So at the left-hand side, you have those various data sources, whether it's enterprise application audit logs, roles and permission data, HRIS data. That's the data that we brought into Snowflake for our use case. And by doing so, we unlocked so many other use cases for the organization. So that's really the reason why we also wanted to use Retool for this. It's because it could be built on top of Snowflake pretty seamlessly. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. I know Dimitri asked this question in the chat, but why did we choose to use Snowflake, or why did we choose to use Retool for this use case versus starting from scratch, right? Really, the reason was we, as an analytics team, already had this data into Snowflake, right? We were specialists in that, but we were not UI developers by any means. So we were able to kind of hone in on having Retool provide us, a foundation in a low-code platform to build a lot of the features and build on top of these features that were already kind of brought to us, and not have to actually develop those from scratch. And it allowed us to be way more business-centric, and focus on the problem, iterate quickly, and really focus on the data aspect of it as well, and making sure that we have all that data available to our end users. So it's a little bit about the background of why we chose Retool and how it works with us, and how we actually started doing it at Snowflake. It didn't take us super long to build this either. I think it took us maybe 2.5 months to iterate from even learning how to use Retool, and then actually implementing a production application that will be used across like 200, 300 managers at Snowflake to actually capture this entire audit control that's so important for us to have it be done accurately as well. So it wasn't a super long time, and that also includes time for UAT. It was super important for us to have a feedback cycle through this and give it to individuals in the company to actually use and give us more feedback, because I think Falguni touched upon this, but the whole reason we are doing this is to solve our end users' frustration, right? With having to do this control in a Google Sheet, and having that process be so cumbersome. It was important for us to get their feedback continuously, and Retool allowed us to develop that application in a way where we could quickly iterate. And if we got feedback from them, we could quickly go and change things, and we didn't have to go through a whole formal process to do that. So anyways, I just want to touch upon those couple items as I saw the questions kind of come in as well. But let me go to the next slide here. So this is the data flow example for our UAR automation. Everything you see in a blue box, a blue colored box, those are Snowflake inherent features that we're utilizing. And we're going to walk through all of this right now. But as we mentioned, to the very left of this diagram, we have our various host systems that we want to ingest data for. And so those are your user access listings, right? This tells you, who has what level of access to a various application, right? Whether it's this admin level access, write level, read only, and these are different across multiple applications that we're ingesting data for into Snowflake. You have roles and permission data, which tells you what those roles actually have permissions to do on what objects. That is super important for us to be able to scope what roles we care about for a user access review, what are risky. And then finally, we pair that information up with our RBAC. And those of you who are not familiar with RBAC, that's role-based access control, that tells us that by being in a given organization or cost center, you by default have approved access to a given role because it is aligned to your responsibilities to have that. So pairing those two pieces of information with roles and permission data with RBAC is really powerful for scoping exercises, which I know, Falguni, you have to do most quarters with audit as well. So really this pillar here with it, which is called host systems, that to me is more of the data aggregation phase, right? You're collecting and defining the reports in various host systems, which you would like to bring into Snowflake. Once you've aggregated that data and you have defined the report that you want to bring in, that moves over to the data ingestion phase of this. And so the boxes in blue are the different methods that Snowflake provides to actually bring data into Snowflake. So whether that's data sharing, which an organization can provide you data from their own Snowflake to yours pretty seamlessly. If you want to use Snowpipe, right, you can connect to an S3 bucket or an Azure Blob storage account and bring that data into Snowflake there. Or you can work with third-party tools like Fivetran, which we also work with and partner with, and they provide kind of out-of-the-box capabilities with ETL there. So then you bring your data into Snowflake. You can have all the warehouse management side of this and making sure your compute resources are allocated properly and optimized. your data comes into Snowflake, and then this is the data transformation, right? All your raw data lands in there. Now it's kind of up to you to transform that into the format that would work for whatever process you're trying to do. Some of my favorite features that I utilize in this process are, tasks, which help you snapshot data over time, or, put on a schedule various SQL operations that you want to have run on a cron schedule of some sort. User-defined functions are super powerful, right? They allow you to define your own functions in Python, Java, Ruby, right? And actually where system-defined functions fall short, really use your imagination to do any transformation you'd like. And then streams, which capture a lot of the DDL activities that happen on various tables and kind of provide a system of record of what changed in this table at that time. So that's your data transformation layer. Data modeling, we use DBT for testing upstream and downstream dependencies, Elation, which is a great data dictionary as well. And then finally, I want to jump forward. This is where Retool comes into place, right? Now that you've brought all your data into Snowflake and it's transformed and it's in the format that you want it to be reviewed, and it's standardized across various host systems, for example, that you're performing that review for, that's when we build our entire Retool platform on top of that data, right? And this is where we defined, how an end manager will be interacting with this review, how they will be walking into that entire process, and how that will be recorded into our backend Snowflake as well, right? All the different operations that they do. And so, I think, I'm just seeing some of the questions come in right now. I want to answer some of them on the fly as well. So if your data is not already in Snowflake, I think Retool can work with various backends there as well. And it doesn't have to just be Snowflake. Obviously, we are using Snowflake because we are Snowflake and it's worked well with us. But that's why I also wanted to touch upon how we started our journey, right? Leveraging Snowflake as your security data lake and partnering with these various teams to get that data into Snowflake was really what was successful for us. And that was probably one of the most difficult parts of this entire flow, is making sure that all these systems, as you continue to grow, various other systems that an organization will use and we will have to do reviews for, all that data ends up in the Snowflake. So partnering with these different organizations or these different sub-teams or groups was really powerful to have one voice and say that bringing this data in not only helps our use case, but it will help all this organization's use cases that are various in nature. So just wanted to kind of touch upon that. But back to our data flow diagram. Once we had that UAR application built in Retool, and all those all that history recorded when a user is interacting there, one part of this flow would also be if a user is determined that their access is no longer needed, right? And we're going to show you that in the demo that we're going to do in a minute here. But if it is determined that that data is no longer or that access is no longer needed for that employee, we obviously want to remove that access, right? That's the whole purpose, right? It's no longer appropriate for this user to have it. We're going to remove it, right? Retool would help us plug into different remediation tracking tools like Jira, ServiceNow, Slack, and actually automate the access removal of that user's access there too. So super powerful to have to actually raise a manual Jira ticket to actually have an access removal taken away, but have that actually be automated. And then that plugs into systems like AD and Okta to actually remove that user from it there.
Couple of things I want to add here. So when we were trying to get this started, we spent quite a bit of time making a decision between build versus buy. And I think we went towards build because you do this once and you can keep repurposing it, right? So initially, when we started architecting this, we were like, oh, we just need a user access review application that we can build with Retool, and we just want a user interface where people can go and complete the reviews. And then we started thinking like, hey, Retool can connect with Snowflake, it can probably connect with other systems. why don't we extend our use case and try to do more here? And something that is customized to your organization, it works for you, it's flexible enough that you can change it. So that was an important call out here. And then the second thing I would like to say is that you see the GitHub icon in each of those work streams. That has been very important because what we are doing here is ensuring that everything is there's change control around these transformations that are happening, and that's all governed through GitHub. And that way, when we have an auditor come down, we're actually working with our very own internal audit team right now. So when we have them come down and ask us questions around accuracy of the data, completeness of the data before it's being presented in the application through Retool, we are able to respond to those, and we are able to provide assurance that as this data is being leveraged for these compliance processes, it is accurate and it is complete. So you can see that how you can build this build this mechanism, and at the same time scale it up and down, and at the same time um, also ensure that it remains auditable
Yes.
at all times. So yeah, just wanted to point.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that those are excellent points, and I for one, I'm eager to kind of get into the demo and show you all what we built here, because I kind of think we've been talking about it for a little bit. So I'll stop sharing. Megan, I don't know if Jay can pull up our demo that we sent, but we recorded a demo of the actual app, and we'll walk you through some of these features live as well here.
Yep, our behind the scenes wizards will pull up the demo now.
Cool.
While we're waiting, there were a couple of good questions in the chat. One from Brian here. It says, our data isn't in Snowflake at the moment. Can we still use an app like this? Do you have any advice for companies like us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think Retool necessarily has to be built on top of Snowflake at the moment. I think it can work with various backend databases and data warehouses in that manner. I think the key is aggregating that data and having it flow into some system that you can use. And that's why I was really stressing on, please partner with these teams who have, similar interests to those through security compliance that want to do UAR automation, and go together to get that data. One voice will be stronger, multiple voices will be stronger than just one asking for it. And then partner with your data engineering teams to have that flow into some system that you can then connect to Retool. But yeah, it doesn't have to just be Snowflake there, but we found that to be successful.
And we would love it if it is Snowflake.
That. Yep.
Yes. All right, it looks like our demo's up.
Cool, great. So I think we can start that. And so this is just a recorded demo that we did here, and this is actually what you're looking at is Retool, and this is everything that we built. And so within the user access review portal, this is what a manager will see when they log in. And so just keying off a couple of things, if a manager comes in and they have, some questions on, what am I even supposed to do here, right? When I'm actually interacting here, like what is the ask for us to do? And so I'm just pausing the video because I just want to make sure that we cover all these items. But so that's what that link was early on. Like, I don't know what to do. We hooked that up to a Google Doc, and it gave a walkthrough of what to do. Something else that's super important is also, providing, an end user a snapshot as to how far along in their review they are, right? Have you completed 5 out of 50 review items, right? Are you tracking to progress? Are you not? Providing that snapshot, even simply like that, was very important, just to make sure that the end user knew what we're asking of them. They didn't have any misconceptions about, I haven't finished this yet, and whatnot. So that's really important. There's also a feedback cycle that we include here, and we want to capture that feedback from users, and that automatically gets recorded into Snowflake as well. And then, coming down into the actual contents of this review, you can see there's filters at the top that allow the manager to look at one role at a time, one system at a time, one employee at a time, right? Filter everything there and then say, great, for user Cameron Tekiyeh, I want to revoke this role, right? Once they say that, automatically 2 questions will pop up. These questions are the ones that we need to have recorded for audit purposes, right? Why was this access appropriate to begin with, right? There's a drop-down menu so that there's no free text field that's needed there. And then, why are we removing the access, right? These are things that we need to record. So the end user can populate that there and have that recorded. And then they can say, I want to save this review as a draft and come back to it later, or I want to approve all access or submit it to compliance for review, right? And then, it pops up, are you sure you want to do this? Yes. And then you can kind of move forward there. And it also shows you a history of like, this is everything you have completed already, right? These are the ones that are in security compliance's court now to perform that review. So everything we saw just up until now, that is what we call the manager portal, where the manager will actually come in and perform the review. I'll hand it over to Falguni now. This next portion is really how security compliance is going to actually be managing the user access reviews themselves. And it's a separate portal and kind of separate app that we've built to actually manage the reviews. Falguni, you want to talk through this one?
Yep. So before we get started here, I just wanted to let you guys know why we had so much stuff redacted in the previous part. This is actually what we are going to be using. So we right as I speak, we have rolled out this application to close to 250, or I believe it's 300 managers at Snowflake. So they'll be logging in the next few days, and they'll be using this. They'll see exactly what Cameron walked through. They'll see their systems, their users, and they'll just be able to take simple, quick steps and be done with the review. So we are actually showing you the app that we built, and we had to redact quite a bit of it. Anyway, so while we talk about the end users, there's also a big component here around compliance, or whoever is preparing and facilitating these reviews. We have to be absolutely sure that we are going through, we are validating the data, we are making sure everything is done completely and accurately, and we are submitting all of these reviews off to our auditors at a given time. And this was I don't want to say anything extreme, but this was very difficult to do without having this tool in place, or having this platform in place. And so what we did is build ourselves a platform, a module that we can use. So let's walk through it here. So what we are seeing here is the view I see, or my team sees, as a new user access review gets kicked off. We are able to track how it's progressing. So if we can play the recording. Yep. So we have different sections here that we can use to keep a tab on how the review is progressing. So one of the things we asked for is like, hey, we want to see how the review is doing overall, or we want to see how our 20 systems are doing, system by system, or how are certain managers doing. So we get to see all of that here. Next, we are able to, capture things like, hey, looks like we have a bunch of revocations coming in. Are they appropriate or not? Do we need to send something back? And take those actions, and then start a feedback loop with the end user if we need to. Here's a way, and if you can just pause here for a quick second. Here's something that's also, again, very, very easy to do. Previously, if I can talk about it for a second. Previously, when we had to kick off a review, we would literally all get into a room and have a meeting and start another spreadsheet and put things on there and start like tracking it through spreadsheets. Now we have an app to do that, right? So here what it shows is that, every time it's time for a new review to be initiated, I just go in there, I press I press a few buttons, and it comes up and the data gets loaded. It shows up on this Retool app, and we're good to go. So this is, I would say, this is a big help and a big burden taken off our shoulders. So this is how a typical review would be initiated. We can, make some changes, change any dates, change any, if we don't want systems in scope or users in scope, we can do all of that. Finally, and this is my favorite because I always end up keeping a tab on what's going on. But as you can see, this is a view of what is the volume that we are dealing with. So again, this is what we are going to be using in the next few weeks, and this is the volume of data that we'll be reviewing over the next few weeks. We can keep going here. All right, really useful charts to help keep things on track. All right. Notifications. So we use Slack a lot at Snowflake, and one of the things we wanted to be able to do is integrate Retool with Slack, so that if there are any folks who haven't responded or haven't gone through the reviews after a certain date, they will get notified. So again, a quick integration, easy to put into place, and this is something my team can go in and customize and set up reminders without us having to Slack individual people. So that's great. And then finally, I think there's another cool feature that we put into place. So this is again something compliance can come in here. We can customize this. Can we pause there for just a second? So can we go slightly back, Jake, if you don't mind? Can we rewind? Yep, right here. Thank you. So this is very interesting for me, because what we can do here is the look back reasons that you guys were seeing, where if someone's access needs to be revoked, what is the reasoning that the person should provide for that? All of that stuff we can customize here. So if our audit requirements change, we can change that here. Another good thing that we added was that if people want to understand what roles users are getting access to, if we hover over the role descriptions, we can see the role definition. So little incremental features that go a long way with these reviews, we were able to add very quickly without having to do anything massive. And then finally, we built this app. We went to our Retool team and we were like, hey guys, we're done. We built it. And they were like, well, maybe you guys want to do a facelift. And that's where we collaborated with them. I got some good ideas. So if you play the video again, this is how it looks today. But in the next iteration of our release, we are going to make our app look like this. It looks very sophisticated and very well designed. But again, this was a quick lift of not more than a week, where you can just make things look more, I would say, more professional and move towards a better design. So yeah. Again.
Exactly. And I was just going to add, Falguni, I think just to stress on this, because I saw these questions pop up in the chat, but like this was developed by an analytics team, right? We don't have expertise in UI development, but we were able to focus on the functionality that we wanted, and then come back and actually iterate on the how the UI looked and give it a facelift. And that was quick to do, quick to iterate on. But the point was to stay business centric, right? And Retool allowed us to do that without stressing that, we can come back and redesign this if we want later on. And it's simple enough to do so. So, I think that was a huge benefit for us when we were looking at other tools to use. And we didn't want to use a tool that was like completely no code and would be boxed into like whatever features are there. But then also we didn't want to write everything from scratch ourselves. And Retool gave us the building blocks to kind of do that in between. So we felt it was a very powerful feature for us. Product.
Cameron, one question that's come up quite a few times in the chat is how long this took you to build. Would you mind sharing?
Definitely. No, yeah. So I think I mentioned it. It took around, if I'm going to keep me honest here, but 2.5 to 3 months of development actively once we got into Retool. Falguni, we had an on-site, I guess, at Snowflake. All 4 of us got on a conference room and just mapped out how we wanted the flow to happen, what features we wanted. And that was like our design phase. And then we converted that into like a data flow diagram and lucid charts. And then we kind of kept iterating. So it helped having the data already in Snowflake to actually be able to focus on the development from there. But it wasn't a long lift when you think about actually implementing a tool like SailPoint, which does this for you in the marketplace. Probably like super expensive to do so. And you need a whole team to actually roll that out. Rather than allowing you to build it yourself and actually focus on a particular use case for a given, right? Because every customer will want something a little bit different, right? This allows you to hear your manager's feedback and implement features that address it for you. So,
awesome. Thank you. And one other quick plug, if anyone missed it in the chat, we are going to work with the Snowflake team to get this into like a template. So if you're interested in taking advantage of the amazing work that they've done, please do fill out the form, which you should see posted by Kevin Garcia in the chat. We'll also be sending it out when we send the follow-up with the recording. So let us know if you are interested there. And I do want to do a quick time check because we only have about 7 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get through your presentation. So I will hand it back over to the two of you if you want to wrap on that piece.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we just have a couple more items. So I'll share my screen again. Okay. Falguni, you want to run through this one, and then we can talk about like the time savings as well that we observed, because there's some questions about that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, very, very quickly, and very self-explanatory. This helps us do everything in one place. So it's a one-stop shop, and we plan to expand this. We are going to add a lot more systems to this whole platform. Helps reduce manual processes, errors, tracking, all of that goes away. And helps convince our auditors that we have a more secure process in place, which is not through managing a bunch of Google Sheets. And we can scale this, as I said. So lots of benefits. I'm sure there are more, but these are the immediate benefits that we're seeing. And when we did an initial, I would say, an estimate of how much this will help us improve our current process, at this point, for about 20 systems, we are going to see an improvement of or a reduction of around 650 hours. So today it takes a total of 650 hours. We're going to see a reduction of about 65% in that. Not just for compliance, but for our reviewers and all of our system administrators, whoever has to get involved in this process. The second big thing, which I absolutely love, is moving away from tickets and Google Sheets. As of last quarter, we ended up using 290 Jira tickets and 320 Google Sheets for one review. So we are moving away from all of that. We're bringing that down to 0. And that also helps us reduce the time to close these things out, right? We don't want our team to be blocked for 6 to 7 weeks a quarter, not doing anything but user access reviews, right? That's not the best use of compliance professionals. So we wanted to reduce that. So we are going to be experiencing at least a 30% reduction. And the last one, Cameron, I know this was your favorite, if you want to talk about that.
It is my favorite. Yeah. So what you see in blue and what Falguni covered, that was part of phase 1 of our project that we are now rolling out as we speak this week and next week. And that's the reduction in time that we observed for that. The 90% that you see, this is part of our phase 2 of the project, which involves the actual manual revocation of access, which is no longer needed. That will all go away, right? We will now be completely removing users who are deemed to have inappropriate access automatically, right? We've written a UDF that can connect over to ServiceNow and Active Directory and actually remove users from groups that actually grant them access to various apps. And that's the flow that we're very excited about. We no longer have to ask our IT team to deprovision users and have that be missed, and then later on come back and see that we didn't actually remove the user that was deemed to be inappropriate. That would result in an audit finding. So that's why I'm very excited about this 90% reduction. That would be 100%. The reason we've called it 90 is because we know not every app that will come into scope for us from the get-go will be integrated with AD and ServiceNow and all those other tools. Once they are, that would essentially be 100%. So yeah. Great. And I think that's basically the end of our presentation. So thank you everyone for listening along. Megan, I guess over to you if you want to talk through questions or anything else.
Yeah, that was a lot of amazing content. Thank you both. And I know we answered a few questions throughout, and then we're almost at time. We may run just a couple minutes over if people are interested in sticking on. But yeah, I would love to get through at least a couple of these, and then we'll follow up with you all separately if we're not able to get to your question today. One that I see is pretty upvoted here from Liam is, how do you manage security and access concerns at the retool layer? This is something that is really quite hard and fragmented.
Falguni, do you want to talk a little? Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, we found it to be pretty straightforward. So we created like 3 roles, for one for compliance, one for obviously Cameron's team doing a lot of the development, and then one for our end users who would just have to go in and complete reviews, right? So they'll basically just be, as you saw there, putting in some values, hitting submit. So we gave them access to their data only, and the ability to just complete those reviews. Compliance has more access because we need to be able to see more data. And then Cameron's team has admin level access. So and actually the funny thing, because we have to make sure that Retool as an app also goes through audit, because this is where all the reviews are captured. And we have to retain reviews for some period after they're done. So we're actually getting Retool through our audit this week, but we've not had any pushback so far or any challenges.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, so I'm just going with the upvotes here. And a question from George, which is, did you check alternatives to Retool? Why did you end up choosing it?
Yeah, I can answer that because we did think about alternatives for Retool, and at the end of the day, I think Retool provides a platform that's super strong to allow teams like mine, which are not formal UI software engineers, devs, right, to actually build apps quickly, stay business centric, and partner with teams like Falguni's, and not get kind of bogged down on developing all those so super fundamental building blocks that Retool already provides you out of the box, right? Retool is a great combination of like, here are the building blocks to help you build, but we're not going to also put you in a box and say that's the only thing you can use, right? So we could dream big, but also kind of like move fast, which is like an amazing combination to be in. So yeah, that's how we ended up on Retool. And there was another question I think that was asked in the chat earlier that I'm gonna talk about as well. But
nice,
you know,
Rogue, I like it.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, we this isn't the only use case in Snowflake that we also have for Retool, right? And it's not the first one we use, right? We also are using it internally for incident response, case management as well. And so I think great to see that we can have multiple applications of it. And you know, I think there's even more use cases of Retool in the product engineering org that I may not be aware of. But I think it's great to see that people can build apps and solve problems quickly using this. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. That's what we love to hear. All right. I think that is all the time we have today. Thank you all for the thoughtful questions and the chat. It's been really lovely to see how active that's been and everyone answering each other's questions as well. And most of all, a huge thank you to Cameron and Falguni. We really appreciate your time and you showcasing all of the incredible work your team has been doing. It really has just been inspiring to see what your team has accomplished just in the first couple months of the partnership. And we're very, very grateful for you sharing all of your expertise with the Retool Network. As far as next steps, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be sharing a recording of this session with all attendees and registrants, along with a link to that form if you are interested in utilizing this template. So please do feel free to pass it along to your network, and our teams will contact you directly when that's available. Thank you so much for joining. We really hope to see you all on future Retool Tech Talks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.